Bear with us, going to throw out something that you probably don't want to hear. You're probably already typing because you've seen the title and you're already hugely pissed off without even giving us 10 or 15 seconds to discuss. But Britton Harden joined me here. If Conor McGregor does what Vegas assumes and what most people assume and what all the athletes we just read off assume and manages to accomplish the unthinkable and beat the unbeatable Floyd Mayweather, what happens? We can only speculate at this moment, but what does his career trajectory look like? What path do you think, in your opinion, Conor McGregor pursues if he happens to beat arguably one of the best boxers of all time?
First off, let me just backpedal a little bit and say this. There is no losing for Conor McGregor here.
Yeah.
He won over a year ago when his name was being mentioned in the same breath as Floyd Mayweather. He wins on top of that when the first bell rings because that check is gonna get deposited into his account.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's life-changing money. If he wins tomorrow night, he becomes the biggest and probably the most polarizing sports figure in history. I can't think in modern history of a more lopsided as far as technical skill and an ability on fight night. He has multiple avenues that he can take. What I think he'll do, if he has his hand raised and he's holding that money belt over his head, he's gonna challenge the winner of Canelo Alvarez and Gennady Golovkin to come and take it from him.
Yeah.
I think that's the natural next big fight. They are both in and around the weight. Conor walks around at about 170. Canelo Alvarez walks around heavy. So does Gennady Golovkin. I mean, I think that the natural money would be on Mexico versus Ireland. So you'd probably want an angle to see Canelo Alvarez. But I think either one of those guys in the ring with Conor McGregor, if he wins, makes sense.
Interesting. So you think the boxing route, he won't go back to UFC and try to defend his title in the UFC and start to pursue? Because we've got options there. Of course, we have Habib, Jason has perfected his last name, and it's Nurmagomedov. I'm just going to say Habib, because you guys know I'm talking about at this point, has always been knocking on the door, who is wanting that shot at Conor McGregor, because in amidst all of this craziness, the guy is also a title holder in the UFC. So in order to stay true to that, and I'm sure Dana White, this is almost, in my opinion, like a one-off to keep alive the idea that UFC is going to surpass, in his view, and many people believe it already has, boxing. He'll want to drag him back. He wants to get him back in and bring that new fan base, which he probably has already got because he's got a huge fan base. Conor McGregor, in my opinion, along with what you said, is already, not in history, but already the most, or one of the most polarizing sports figures in the world. And he's going to drag that audience regardless of how this fight goes with him. So I think Dana White might be thinking, all right, time to get him back in.
Well, so see, you don't get to Dana White's position by putting emotion over logic.
Yeah.
And if you have the opportunity to go and face Canelo Alvarez or Gennady Golovkin for half of what you're making in this Mayweather fight, even a quarter of what you're making in this Mayweather fight, you don't put him back in the ring against Khabib or Kevin Lee or Tony Ferguson, because what is the most he's ever made in a UFC fight? Now, there'll be a lot of excitement to see him go back into the octagon and defend those belts, but those fights will always be there. They're already having interim championship contest, right? So at the end of the day, you have a champion who's gonna reign at 155 in the UFC, and it's only gonna make a showdown between two champions even bigger. You look at what John Jones and Daniel Cormier were able to accomplish with John Jones never being beat, and Daniel Cormier destroying everybody in his path. It makes the fight that much more sexy when you have two belts on the line. So I think those fights will always be there. So I think that you obviously go with logic over emotion. You get a little bit more money to split between yourself and Conor. You keep Conor happy, and then you lure him back into the UFC. If Conor wins, he can do whatever he wants.
Yeah, no doubt. Absolutely. And there's the other option, which people laugh at, but are we at the point as just stopping laughing at things that we might not happen, right? We've had a man-child celebrity apprentice now as our current president. We have the goings on between, which was just touted as a rumor between Mayweather and McGregor, now coming to fruition. So the expectation of Conor McGregor heading into WWE to maybe just have a stint there to make some more money and be a polarizing figure there, people are laughing it off. I think it's unrealistic, but I'm not going to rule it out. I'm never going to rule out that Conor McGregor's ability to keep us on our toes. Because that's what he likes to do, is he likes to keep us guessing and likes to remain, even if he's not at every aspect, in control with his decision making. So I think I want to go back to the first point. If he doesn't win, which is a more realistic option, does anything really change? Or is it just the same path that's in front of him?
Well, I'm glad you asked that question, because I do think that that's the more realistic outcome for tomorrow. Not to say, and we can talk about this more at length if you like, but not to say he has 0% chance. I'm not communicating that at all. I just think that the more likely situation is that he loses. But I like him losing because there's still a money fight that's already being festered. There's a money fight that we already have narrative for, and that's against him and Paulie Malignaggi. Someone whose skills may be a little bit more applicable to his, someone whose skill level with him being, you can call him a journeyman boxer. I would say that at this point in Paulie's career, he's probably about a B- level fighter. Went on the scale of a Floyd Mayweather, right? I think that's fair, and it's not disrespectful at all. He's a 2-time world champion. I have a lot of respect for Paulie. But I think that their sparring sessions, the chopped up footage that we have seen, it's compelling enough to where it looks like Conor is having his way, but at the same time, if Conor's having his way in the 2 10-second clips that we saw, then why don't you show us what happened the 10 seconds prior to that, or the 10 seconds after that? You know, so there's already a festering narrative there, and that's what's missing in the sport of boxing. That's the kind of excitement that people will buy into. And Paulie is such an emotional person. Everything that's happening with him, he's going back, he's talking about it on his podcast, and he's going to every media outlet. We need to get him on TYT, because he's going to every media outlet that reaches out to him about his take.
He was the first one to approach McGregor when he got to Vegas. He went straight up to him and he was like, "You brought your balls, Conor."
So, so can you imagine watching a Showtime All Access around those two characters? While Floyd Mayweather is a little bit more subdued in his later years, he's a little bit more business-like. He'll sell the fight, but he knows that this is all business. This is really personal between those two guys. So I think there's already a built-in narrative there that I would like to see play out, and I'm not quite sure who won those sparring sessions, because the footage has been so chopped up. So both guys have a point. I kicked his ass, I won, I did this, I did that. Let's see it all play out.
You know, and I think that Paulie, from the moment he was asked to spar, I think he saw a big, massive dollar sign in front of him. Because let's be honest, like as you mentioned there, he's a renowned champion, but he's not been in that level of a spotlight in a few years. No one really has. This is what Conor McGregor and Floyd Mayweather are able to bring. Like you saw what happens in the UFC. I follow it very closely, and you see, we talked to Tyron Woodley, Jason and I personally, after through a couple of interview questions after the McGregor fight against Alvarez, and he in front of everyone was like, "I'll fight Conor McGregor. Yeah, you want to bring it?" Because they see that it's just different. It's just a different field you're in. You're in a different world with a man that is able to capture so many different points of view. So I think Paulie, when he was asked to spar with them, the best thing that could have happened for him was that footage being released.
Absolutely.
Because he's thinking to himself, all right, well, I'm already set, and he's continuing that, and I'm not going to judge him. I see people online, McGregor fans that I follow, who are just calling him a weasel and saying he's a snake. He's just a businessman. But he's trying to set up the next fight.
He so much has said, this guy has made me relevant again. You know, I've went off and I've retired. I had no desire to fight again. I think I genuinely do. I disagree with you on one thing. I think that he genuinely was retired and had intentions on being a part of this spectacle in any way that he could. I think that he really wanted to just spar him, help him get better. He'd have insight that he'd be able to give us on fight night as a Showtime analyst. But I think that, because otherwise I don't think he would have went in as overweight as he was and out of shape as he was. I think that he genuinely thought that they were going to at some point have a respect for each other, because in boxing, that's traditionally how it goes. You spar, you share the ring, you know that I'm here to help you. Let's get past all the BS and let's get to the strategy. Once he realized that they didn't have him there for that and it was more so to embarrass him, he pieced out. And at that point, I think he realized, if I keep this going and people keep, you know, if there's a need or if there's a want to see me in this guy's face, then we're going to end up in the ring together. And that is the business acumen that I have a huge respect for.
Interesting. And I think to finish off, is you're right about one thing about boxing. So, you know, we've spoke before about it. I'm a huge UK boxing fan and always have been. And we're not shy of rivalries. I don't think the US is either. Like, we definitely believe that there's some rivalries there. But there's something about the UK boxing that continuously allowed it to thrive, I think, with Tyson Fury continuously going back and forth with Anthony Joshua and David Haye going back and forth with Bellew. Like, there just seems to be like more of an intense real feud that's right there that I think might be missing to connect the shows again the way we used to have with Lennox Lewis in fighting consistently against Evander Holyfield and Evander, like these sort of things that could bring, I think, the boxing community to I don't think that it's died off. I've never been one to say that. I just think that something like Conor McGregor sparking a real rivalry with someone, that because McGregor does that with anyone he fights. People will hate him, but they know he's going to make him money. Same way that Diaz, there was that mutual respect after, and then 5 minutes later they're talking shit on each other again. So I think that could be something that the boxing world, as much as Dana White is probably thinking, all right, I got to get Conor back in after this, regardless if he wins or loses. The boxing world are thinking, all right, let's see what we can get more out of this guy. Let's see if we can continuously squeeze.
I don't think there's any losers here.
No.
Regardless of the outcome.
Unless Jason Rubin, he's definitely losing right now. He's 500 shy on the roulette table. He told me he wasn't going to, he's like asked, and I was like, Jason, how much you spending? He's like, I can't spend more than $5. And I was like, dollars? He's like, no, 500. I'm like, that's absolutely absurd that you're already like making that amount of money your threshold
for losing.
Godspeed, Jason. All right, comment below. What do you think? We went into a lot of depth there. Conor McGregor wins, loses, draws. What happens afterwards? Don't go anywhere. As I mentioned, we've got full fight stream tomorrow that we will be discussing. Before the fight, after the fight, Britain will be on. We'll all be Mayweather, McGregor out, I'm sure, by that point. But who cares? We'll see you guys soon.